there's a quiet power you've seen before. In a room full of noise, they are the one who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't react, the one who just knows. While others are shouting, explaining, defending themselves, they remain calm, still, untouchable. You've seen this energy. You've envied it. Maybe even feared it. But what if you could become it? Not by being cold, not by pretending to be above it all, but by truly mastering the only thing that really matters in this life, your inner world. Because here's the truth. Every time you react, whether to a disrespectful comment, a failed plan, or a rejection you didn't see coming, you give away something priceless, your power. And in doing so, you become a puppet to the world, pulled by the opinions of others, triggered by the smallest of slights, controlled not by intention but by impulse. This video is not just another motivational talk. It is a roadmap to a way of living that only a few ever achieve. A way of being that radiates control without aggression. In the next few minutes, you'll discover how the most unshakable minds are not born, but built through practice, through silence, through the slow unlearning of every reaction that ever made you weak. You'll learn why the strongest people are often the quietest, and how mastering indifference is not about apathy, but about choice. The choice to care wisely, to move intentionally, to let the world spin while you stay grounded. You will understand why real power comes not from proving your worth, but from knowing it so deeply, so completely, that nothing outside of you can touch it. So if you've ever been exhausted by your own emotions, if you've ever looked back at a moment and thought, why did I let that get to me? Then stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you won't just know how to act like nothing bothers you. You'll become the kind of person for whom nothing truly does. And that changes everything. The myth of strength, why you break so easily. You've been taught to believe that strength means dominance, loudness, visible control. That the powerful ones are those who shout the loudest, move the fastest, strike back the hardest. But that's a myth. A carefully packaged illusion sold by a culture obsessed with appearances and performance. The real reason you keep breaking down under pressure, keep reacting when someone insults you, keep spiraling after a minor setback has nothing to do with weakness and everything to do with misdirection. You've been told to control your environment, to win every argument, to be liked by everyone, to anticipate problems before they appear. But no one taught you the one skill that actually keeps you sane, how to stay unmoved when the world tries to move you. That's why you crack. Because your entire sense of worth still hinges on things you can't control. Their opinion, their response, the outcome. And so when the world fails to meet your script, you collapse not because you're fragile, but because you've been trained to tie your stability to unstable things. Western culture celebrates control, but only the kind you can see: productivity, financial success, social charisma. It rarely teaches the quiet, invisible control, the kind that doesn't need to react, doesn't need to win, doesn't need to be understood. The kind that walks away and still owns the room. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But we've forgotten that. We've become addicted to reaction. The algorithm rewards outrage. The world praises fast responses, but that same rush keeps you enslaved. You jump from feeling to feeling, never stopping long enough to ask, is this reaction mine, or was it planted in me? And every time you explode in anger, crumble in fear, overthink until your head aches, you reinforce the lie that you are powerless to your own emotions. But what if strength wasn't about how hard you hit back, but how little you need to? What if the strongest person in the room wasn't the loudest, but the one who doesn't flinch? The one who stays rooted while the storm screams? What if everything you've been taught about power was wrong? The art of indifference. It's not apathy, it's power. Most people hear the word indifference and assume it means coldness, numbness, a lack of care. But that misunderstanding is exactly why so many remain trapped by their emotions. Indifference, real, conscious indifference, is not a flaw. It's a weapon. a high form of discipline. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of control. Because let's face it, if every opinion shakes you, if every minor slight derails your peace, then you're not living, you're surviving. You are handing your emotional power to anyone loud enough to disturb your inner world. But imagine what happens when you flip that dynamic. When someone insults you and it doesn't land. When failure greets you and you don't collapse. When chaos swirls around you and you remain rooted, calm, precise. That isn't apathy. That's what mastery looks like. The difference lies in intentionality. Apathy is retreat. Indifference is command. One comes from disconnection. The other comes from sovereignty. And this is the difference between the masses and the few. Most people react because they've never trained their mind to pause. They think the first emotional impulse is the truth. But your mind is not a courtroom, it's a battlefield. And those who win the war are the ones who don't swing at every shadow. In success literature, Napoleon Hill spoke often about the power of the mind to dominate circumstance. But what he really pointed to was the subtle power of response, of being unmoved when the world wants you volatile. Because when you master this posture, this quiet inner detachment, you become magnetic. People sense it. They don't know why, but they can't look away. It's because you've become what they're not, stable. And in a world addicted to emotional volatility, the calm one stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. But here's the catch. This kind of indifference can't be faked. You can pretend for a while. You can act above it. But life has a way of exposing your emotional weak points. True indifference must be practiced until it is built into your nervous system. Until it becomes your natural resting state. Until peace becomes your default setting. The irony? The moment you no longer need to prove your strength is the moment everyone sees it. So if you've spent your life trying to be tough, always on the defensive, always responding to every challenge, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what would it feel like to stop reacting and simply rise? Why they can't control you if you don't react. There's a moment brief, electric, that happens just before a reaction. Someone says something cruel, something sharp, and your mind lights up. Your pulse rises, your jaw tenses. 1,000 justifications explode inside your chest. But in that one instant, you have a choice. You can give them what they want, your anger, your validation, your energy. Or you can give them silence. And that silence, you take back control. Most people don't realize this, but the game is psychological. The moment you react emotionally, you lose. You become predictable, manipulatable. You've shown your hand. And the person in front of you, whether they meant to or not, now owns a part of your inner world. That's how control works, not through dominance, but through triggering. The world is full of people who feed on your reaction. Narcissists, emotional bullies, energy thieves. They push buttons, not because they're powerful, but because they've learned you'll press the detonator for them. But when you don't react, when you breathe, when you smile, when you walk away, you starve them of their only tool, your reactivity. That's not weakness. That's silent dominance. Think of it this way. A lion doesn't flinch at barking dogs. A seasoned chess master doesn't respond to every distraction. And the most powerful individuals in history? They rarely explain, rarely defend, rarely show emotional cracks. Because they understood that composure is influence. Not being easily moved is the loudest signal of strength. There's a story, perhaps you've seen it, of a man being insulted in front of a crowd. Everyone watches, waiting for him to snap. But he doesn't. He nods slowly, thanks the person calmly, and walks away. The insulter is left stunned, exposed. Why? Because his entire strategy hinged on stealing power through reaction. And it failed. This is the essence of frame control, a concept used in negotiation and high-level communication. Whoever controls the emotional tone controls the outcome. And you can only do that if you refuse to let external noise dictate your internal state. But here's where it gets harder. Silence in the face of disrespect isn't always praised. You'll be told you're passive. that you let people walk over you. But real strength isn't about proving yourself to the loudest voice in the room. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that no one's voice, no matter how sharp, can distort it. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't ask, "How do I win this argument?" Ask this instead: "What happens if I don't play?" Failure is feedback. Why emotional people stay stuck. Some people fail and never return. One rejection, one missed. Opportunity, one betrayal, and they're done. They carry that failure like a scar across their identity. But others, they fail bigger, harder, louder, and still rise. Not because they're stronger in body or spirit, but because they never internalized failure as a definition. They saw it for what it really was: feedback, data, a signal, not a sentence. In the startup world, there's a well-known phrase: fail fast, fail forward. It sounds aggressive, even reckless, but behind it lies a quiet philosophy rooted in psychological detachment. These founders don't take failure personally, not because they don't care, but because they've trained themselves to separate self-worth from outcome. Emotional people don't fail more often. They just stay stuck longer. Why? Because they absorb the failure into their ego. They personalize it. "I was rejected" becomes "I am unworthy." "The project didn't work" becomes "I am a failure." And with every emotional loop, they reinforce the identity of defeat. But those who understand the power of detachment see failure not as a threat to their self-concept, but as a refinement of it. They are scientists, not sufferers. Observers, not victims. And this shift, this small mental reframe, is what separates those who spiral from those who soar. There's a reason the world's top performers journal obsessively, track patterns, seek feedback without defensiveness. It's because they treat emotion like clouds, real, visible, but always moving. Never permanent. Never the sky itself. And here lies the deeper truth: if failure destabilizes you emotionally, it's not because the event was devastating. It's because your identity wasn't solid to begin with. Your sense of self was still built on sand, on approval, on applause, on outcomes. But when your worth is self-generated, anchored not in winning but in integrity, in learning, in process, then no failure can take it away. And here's what most people don't realize: the fastest learners in any field are not the most talented, they are the least reactive. They are the ones who can look at their flaws without flinching, look at a rejection without collapsing, look at a hard truth without turning away. And that kind of mental composure, that's not natural. It's built through practice, through mistakes, through detachment. So next time life knocks you down, ask yourself honestly: did I fall? Or did I choose to stay there? Mastering emotional detachment without losing your humanity. Somewhere along the way, people began confusing detachment with indifference. They started believing that to be emotionally untouchable, you must become emotionally unavailable, cold, unfeeling, disconnected. But that is not detachment. That is numbness. That is trauma wearing a mask. Real detachment is something far more powerful and far more human. It is the ability to feel deeply without drowning, to care intensely without collapsing, to love without losing yourself. Emotional detachment doesn't strip you of your humanity. It refines it. It teaches you how to hold space for pain without letting it consume you. It teaches you how to show compassion without becoming a sponge for everyone else's chaos. It teaches you how to be present without being controlled. And that balance, that beautiful, rare balance, is what gives birth to wisdom. The ancient Stoics understood this. So did Buddhist monks, Jungian analysts, and warrior philosophers throughout history. They didn't run from feeling. They walk through it, but they refuse to be enslaved by it, because they knew something most people forget. Emotions are visitors, not rulers. They come, they go. They inform, but they should never decide. And here's the subtle but life-changing truth. You can feel anger and choose not to act on it. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel heartbreak and still hold your dignity. Detachment is not a wall, it's a bridge. A bridge between impulse and choice, between chaos and clarity, between survival and sovereignty. And that bridge is built through practice, through awareness, through moments of silence when everyone else is screaming. But here's the hard part. The world won't always understand you. When you don't lash out, they'll call you detached. When you don't react, they'll say you're aloof. When you choose stillness over drama, they'll label you distant. Let them. Because you weren't born to be understood, you were born to understand. And once you realize that your peace is too precious to rent out to passing emotions, you start living from a place they can't touch. Not because you don't feel, but because you feel with wisdom. And in that wisdom, there is power. So the next time someone asks why you seem so calm, so composed, so unaffected, ask yourself this: is it because I'm empty inside, or is it because I finally stopped letting the world tell me who I have to be? Letting go, the philosophy of flow over control. We've been conditioned to grip tighter, to hold on, to force outcomes, preserve relationships, demand certainty. But what if the peace? You're looking for begins the moment you release? Letting go sounds passive, weak, defeated. But in truth, it is one of the most powerful acts a human being can perform, because it goes against everything your ego was taught. Letting go means abandoning the illusion that you are in control of everything. It means surrendering not to failure, not to fate, but to flow. Picture a river. It doesn't argue with the rocks. It doesn't rage at the bends. It doesn't pause to analyze why the current shifted. It simply moves, adapts, carries forward. The strength of water lies in its flexibility. And the same is true of you. The more rigid your expectations, the more easily they break you. The more you demand that life conform to your plans, the more violently you suffer when it doesn't. But those who learn to flow, those who embrace change, who accept endings, who don't resist the unknown, they become unshakable. Not because they are indifferent, but because they have traded control for clarity. In Western psychology, this is known as radical acceptance. In Taoist philosophy, it is called Wu-Wei, effortless action, the art of aligning with the current instead of fighting it. And in Jungian terms, it is the mature ego surrendering to them. Self, the deeper wisdom that knows more than the conscious mind ever could. Letting go is not weakness. It's refinement. It means choosing peace over control, growth over certainty, movement over paralysis. And it doesn't happen all at once. It begins with tiny moments, releasing the need to always be right, letting the phone ring without reacting, breathing through the pain without trying to fix it. These are acts of quiet courage. They are what make you lighter, freer, stronger. Because when you no longer grip the world with fear, your hands are finally free to shape it with love. But here's the paradox: letting go is not giving up. It's showing up without attachment. It's walking into life with open hands instead of clenched fists. And that posture, that open-hearted stance, is what gives birth to true resilience. So ask yourself, in all the chaos you're facing right now, what are you still gripping that you were never meant to hold? Silence is your loudest move. In a world addicted to noise, silence is revolutionary. Most People speak to fill the air, to explain, defend, convince, or impress. But the most powerful individuals in history understood something different. Silence speaks a language only the truly grounded can hear. They knew that every time you react impulsively, you reveal yourself, your insecurities, your triggers, your fears. But when you remain silent, composed, unreadable, you flip them. Dynamic. Suddenly, they are the ones wondering, thinking, scrambling to regain control. Silence is tension, and tension is power. Imagine a negotiation. One side makes an offer, the other says nothing. Seconds pass, then more. That silence grows heavier than any words could. The speaker becomes nervous. They revise the offer, sweeten the deal, search your face for clues. Why? Because in silence, you now control the pace, the tone, the energy. Or think of the last time someone insulted you. Maybe they expected a reaction, anger, retaliation, a verbal war. But instead, you smiled or said nothing at all. That moment, that was dominance. Because silence, when chosen, is never emptiness. It's restraint. It's strategy. It's presence. Most people fear silence because they can't sit with themselves. They don't know what to do with the space. But for the mentally trained, for those who've learned emotional, disciplined silence is home. It is the gap where all things are observed, but nothing is wasted. Where you can see clearly, choose wisely, move precisely. And in that stillness, something remarkable happens. People begin to listen. Not because you shouted, but because you didn't have to. Your restraint becomes louder than their aggression. Your quiet becomes more unsettling than their chaos. And over time, your very presence starts speaking for you. The way you walk, the way you pause before answering, the way you don't rush to explain yourself to people who never deserved your clarity in the first place. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you've outgrown the need to win with noise. And in that space, your power becomes untouchable. So the next time the world pushes you to react, to argue, to prove, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what would happen if I said absolutely nothing at all? Building the unshakable mind, daily practices that forge inner steel. We admire people who stay calm under pressure, who walk into chaos without flinching, who never seem shaken, no matter what life throws at them. But what we rarely see is how they got there. Because unshakable minds aren't born. They are forged, quietly, daily, in the unseen hours where no one is watching. The mind, like the body, grows stronger through resistance. And every emotional trigger, every frustrating moment, every delayed gratification, it's all weight, training. And while most people avoid discomfort, those who rise lean into it. They know that the only way to stop being ruled by their emotions is to train those emotions to serve them instead. That's why the strongest minds aren't the ones who feel less. They're the ones who control more. They've built habits that shape who they are. They start their days in silence. They breathe before speaking. They pause before reacting. They delay gratification not to punish themselves, but to prove that nothing owns them. Not sugar. Not anger. Not social media. Not the approval of others. And slowly, one decision at a time, they become something rare, emotionally sovereign. One powerful practice is to make small promises and keep them. Wake up when you said you would. Finish the task. Drink the water. Hold the silence. Why? Because each time you do, you reinforce a message deep in your subconscious. I can trust myself. And when you trust yourself, you stop chasing permission from the world. You become grounded, present, steady. Another habit? Exposure. Controlled discomfort. Choose to do one difficult thing each day. Sit with boredom. Walk into hard conversations. Hold your boundaries when it would be easier to fold. These are not grand gestures, but they rewire your nervous system. They train your body to remain calm when others panic. They teach your soul to breathe when everything says run. Over time, you'll notice something strange. What used to rattle you no longer does. The comments, the rejections, the delays. You still feel them, but they no longer own you. And that shift, that quiet shift in your internal architecture, that's what makes you unshakable. So if you find yourself wondering why you can't stay calm, why your reactions still run the show, ask yourself this. Have you been training your mind or just hoping it would one day change on its own? Move in silence, build in silence, win in silence. There comes a point on the path of self-mastery where words no longer matter, where explanations feel unnecessary, where validation becomes irrelevant. That's when silence isn't just a strategy, it becomes your entire posture. Because once you've trained your mind, controlled your emotions, detached from outcomes, and let go of the noise, you realize the final move is no move at all. Just presence. Quiet, rooted, clear. The world teaches us to broadcast our plans, to announce every step, to decorate progress with applause. But the ones who truly rise, the ones who lead revolutions in silence, move differently. They don't share. They don't explain. They execute. They vanish into focus. They allow success to arrive without a trumpet. While others perform strength, they embody it. And that embodiment is undeniable. It needs no defense. Think of the ones who changed everything. They weren't the loudest. They didn't beg to be seen. They built in silence, not out of fear, but out of clarity. They understood that real power is not built on noise. It's built on discipline, on restraint, on self-belief so deep it doesn't need to be proven. And in a culture addicted to attention, this quiet confidence is revolutionary. While others post, you progress. While others react, you refine. While others talk, you build. And slowly, invisibly, you begin to win. Not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting battles that never mattered. So as you move forward, remember this: not everything needs to be shared. Not every thought deserves an audience. And not every victory requires a witness. Let your work speak. Let your peace speak. Let your presence speak. And when they ask how you did it, when they wonder how nothing seemed to rattle, you look them in the eye and say nothing at all.